to the Daily Surrender, a space for real, raw, and vulnerable conversations about what it truly means to live in alignment with God's design. I'm Jennifer Ragazzo, a soul-aligned wellness coach who is far from perfect and still figuring out this whole human experience, just like you. Here we talk about the messy, the beautiful, and everything in between as we learn to let go, trust more, and step into the peace and freedom that's already waiting for us. Let's dive in. Welcome back to the Daily Surrender. On this week's episode, I am not flying solo. I've invited one of my closest friends, my spiritual besties, I call her, Carmen Hunter, onto the podcast for a conversation about spiritual friendships and how we can use our relationships that God's given to us in our life to really call us higher, to sharpen us, iron sharpening iron. And Carmen and I want to talk to you here today in a very organic conversation, sharing some of the behind the scenes of our own friendship over the past decade and how we've really leaned into using our friendship to really call ourselves higher, to grow ourselves, to really embody Christ within each of us in our own lives. So, Carmen, welcome to the Daily Surrender. Thank you so much for having this conversation with me here today. Carmen came out. Carmen came out and spent 5 days with me last week, staycating in my house. I'd been out to see her in Tennessee a few times. I really was inspired after our 5 days together because not only did we laugh a lot and have a lot of fun, but we did some sparring, what I call like some sparring that sharpens one another. So it's like soul sparring. And I really thought, man, this is a topic that I really think could bless a lot of people because we're made for community. We're made for relationships. But are we using our relationships that we have in our life to really, really honor God and to grow us? Like, relationships can be really fun. We can have a lot of fun. And you and I have a lot of fun together. Like, I don't know anyone that I belly laugh as deeply as I do with you, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
We can get crazy, bed life crazy. But one of the things that we have really both individually been committed to, I would say, especially over the last 5 years, has been our own individual personal growth and going deeper, going higher, letting go more and more of like the density of this world. So I know for myself, over the past 5 years, I've taken a good hard look at every single relationship in my life. And I've assessed, is this a relationship that's expired? Is this a relationship that blesses me? Is it a relationship that's going to grow me and challenge me? And in all of the sifting of the wheat from the shaft in all relationships in my life, you've been one that has not only stayed, but God has pushed me like closer to you. He's actually said, lean in more and use some of even the hard things in our friendship and the differences in our personality, use it. Like God's made that really, really clear to me to use it. So on this episode here today, I want to talk about that with you and share with our listeners how they might be able to use the relationships in their life, or maybe they don't have one yet, but they might want to be open to that and really lean into that so that they're using other people, that spiritual friendship to really sharpen the soul. So, Carmen, you and I met online during both of our coaching journeys. I'll give our listeners a little bit of a background on that. Carmen had been coaching, you were coaching. How long have you even been a coach at this point?
Almost over 18 years. So be 18 and a half years in a couple of months.
So you were like years, like 5-6 years ahead of me. I was in the online space. That's where we met. We met in this like crazy, wild online space. You were in Tennessee. I was in Pennsylvania. And
Mhm.
we met each other. I was already coaching. So I've been coaching for 12 years at this point. So I was already coaching, but I was still like not feeling like I was in my groove. And I saw you online and you've got a really awesome personality. You're bold, you're confident, you put yourself out there. And I wanted more of what you have. I wanted more of that energy and that confidence. So I started following you and I think I bought a guide from you and
Mhm.
I'm just
Yeah.
like listening to you. You're doing your different lives and things like that. And when you launched the Institute for Functional Health Coaching, you had like your first cohort. And I distinctly remember thinking, I have absolutely no reason to do this, like none. I was already coaching. I'd already gone through a program and had my certification. And I was also a student at the School of Applied Functional Medicine and a momming and all the things. And I'm like, screw it. I'm just going to do it. There's just something here. And I look back on that moment in my life when I made that decision as being one of those like really divinely timed things. Like that was a divine nudge to join your program, to become part of the program. I mean, not only did you teach me so much about how to be real and how to be authentic and how to really help people. I mean, you're like the cut through the bullshit type of a person in all areas of your life, and that's the way you
Mhm.
talk. And but that group just, I mean, it changed my life because of the relationships that I made in it, and you're one of the relationships
Mhm.
that like forever changed my life.
Mhm.
And so Carmen and I became friends during that season almost a decade ago, where we're both coaching. And one of the things that bonded us was our boys. So we
Mhm.
both had sons, have sons. I mean, they're not, they're still here. We both have sons that are the same age. They're both 20 right now, but they were much younger at the time. And we were bonded because raising boys is like very unique. Raising boys through teenagehood, very unique. And so we had that mom thing going on. And we also had God. We had the God thing. So I just, there was something in you that just like drew me to you. And I was very comfortable from early on being open with you, being vulnerable with you, and talking God. So we talked our boys and we talked God and we talked coaching. Yeah.
Mhm.
And then
Yeah.
you really started to shift. It was like, what was it, 2020? It was like about 2020 when things for you were starting to change and you weren't, things were changing in the industry with the Institute, right?
Yeah, because of censorship, for sure. Yeah. When 2020
Mhm,
happened to the world, it definitely happened in my business, for sure. Being
mhm.
loud and outspoken and speaking your mind and being forward about things was not as welcome back then. So, yeah.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
wasn't as welcomed, truly. And
Mhm.
for me, 2020 was like my dark night of the soul. So, not
Mhm.
just because of what was going on in the world, that just happened to collide with my own behind the scenes and the things that were going on for me in my life. And I was someone who really put up like a good front. I mean, we've had a lot of conversations since
Oh,
because you
yeah.
thought I was like the person who had it all together.
Oh, that's no question. No question about it. I'm like, she has everything all together. She's always pulled together. She's always succinct. She's professional. She's beautiful. She's got all of these lines are so clean around her. How in the world am I going to fit into this
Mhm.
relationship with my messy, loud, outspoken, me?
Yes,
Fully
exactly
expression
that.
of myself. It's so different, right? From
Yes,
what I knew
yes.
anyway. Hmm.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And for our listeners, so as you're listening here, we don't always attract to us like the people that are exactly like us. I mean, you and I, when it comes to the core things like our core values, our heart, our love for other people, our love for God, our desire to help people in this world, we are so aligned. And then in a
Yes.
lot of other ways, anybody else who's listening to this who knows the both of us, or maybe who've known the both of us in the online space for the past decade in any way, shape, or form, are like, wow, Jen and Carmen, like we do go together well. And then it's also like, whoa, you guys are like apples and oranges. And
Mhm.
I know now that why I was attracted to you and wanting to get to know you more and doing your program because the things that I was lacking were in my own self were self-confidence, being bold, using my voice. And I mean, I had a lot of my own constructs that you didn't know that I wasn't even aware of. But in 2020, that was a period of time in my life where I things were just my behind the scenes. I mean, I was just breaking down. And I didn't share that. I didn't share that with you. I didn't share that with anybody. And my listeners who've listened to other episodes have heard me mention before my mentor, Molly, that I hired during that season of my life to really help me tear the house down. So I'm over here still friends with you. You know, we would volley back
Mhm.
and forth and talk about the kids and especially the boys and raising teenage boys and send each other, you know, just inspirational things and all of that. And, you know, of course, sometimes like mutually commiserate. And yeah, I'm watching you just be like, what is happening in the world? And you're bold and you're outspoken. And I'm thinking the things that you're saying. And I'm also terrified because you're using your voice and I'm over here terrified to use my voice. And I'm like, what is
Mhm.
happening in the world? So 2020 was a time, I think, in our friendship where like I didn't know, I didn't even know how to be me around you. So I
Mhm.
look at that season and you're there trying to figure out a lot. You've gone through a really messy, ugly divorce. You're trying to keep your behind the scenes life together, raising a son as a
Mhm. By
single
myself.
mom.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
So you've got a lot of hard going on in your behind the scenes, and I had a lot of hard going on in my own behind the scenes, and we weren't yet at a place where we felt even comfortable being completely open and vulnerable with one another. And what I want to share again a little bit of our background so that our listeners here can understand like our intention for recording this podcast and for sharing with you guys here today is to really explore the divine design of spiritual friendship and what it looks like and how to nurture it and how to allow it to be a path of growth and love and refinement, like divine refinement in the relationship. So I I remember journaling and Molly, who I was working with at the time, she would ask me a lot of hard questions, a lot of hard questions. And one of the questions she would ask me repeatedly was to take a look at every person in my life and to take a look at the purpose that they served. And were they serving the purpose of my own growth and evolution? Were they helping me to serve God and the greater good? Were they helping me to be true to my authentic self? Was I using my sand in my hourglass really well? Was I honoring it or was I like wasting time? She really reflected back to me a lot about how often as human beings we waste time. We waste time when we gossip, we waste time when we get caught up in other people's swirls and then we're swirling with them and instead of helping them go up, we we pull them down and then or they pull us down. And I remember writing in my journal like the friendships that I had in my life and I asked God, I said, like which ones stay and which one should go. And you were one of them. I put that there and I've told you that since.
Mhm.
And I just kept it there as a prayer. It was 3.5, 4 years ago. I was trying to remember this before we were recording. It was 4 years ago. I had no idea, Carmen. You were going through one of the hardest seasons of your entire life outside of your divorce, but it was actually like a byproduct of the divorce as a mom with your
Mhm.
son. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
And I was going through the hardest season of motherhood behind the scenes that I had ever gone through. The details of that are irrelevant because they are personal to and private for our children. But it was a lot, right?
Mhm. Yes. And one
Yeah.
thing after the other, after the other, after the other.
Oh my God. Yes. One thing after
Mm.
the other. Exactly that. And I didn't share it with anybody. And you didn't I mean, maybe there were a couple people in my life who knew little bits of what was going on, but I carried so much shame and I didn't know what to do with it. And I also had this persona of like having everything together. Like I was the
Mhm.
person who had my shit together, right? And I'm gonna what? Let other people know. And it was probably 6 months into that season where you and I were on the phone. We like hopped on a call
Yeah,
and
which
yeah,
we didn't do often.
we did it. And I remember you saying, let's like actually like I think we zoomed. And we're like, let's like have a conversation, like face to face. I was like, and there was something inside of me that just said, share, just share it with her.
I
And
love
I'm getting choked up even remembering that moment because as I shared where I was, and you, again, you were the first person, and I just like fully let it all out. I was like, I just got to let this out because I'm feeling like I'm barely holding this together. And I shared, and I remember you saying to me, "Oh my God, first of all, how are you doing that? How are you holding it all together? I can't believe you've been going through all of that, and I never knew, and I feel so much better." So, because you why don't you share from your perspective?
Okay. So, and I hope my dog doesn't bark, but she might. So, I remember when you shared what was going on with you, and I had
Mm,
had this. I'd only had like maybe two. I actually held it away from my friends that I had been best friends for almost 20 years in
mhm,
my life, like my ride
yeah,
or dies. And I even had a friend who went through something very hard with her son too, but it was so long ago. I thought I don't know if she could possibly even commiserate
mhm,
with me about this. And so
mhm,
I remember when you were talking, I felt almost like I can almost feel it right now. This, oh God, here comes my own shit. Here it comes, coming to the
mhm,
surface, coming to the surface. Oh God, you're going to share your shit too. It was almost like
mhm,
permission, but it was like my
mhm.
soul was bringing it up from the depths of all the despair I'd been in and
Yeah,
saying, okay, you're going to have to, like, this is the person. So you're literally your vulnerability allowed me to tap into my vulnerability. I felt like, it was almost like, Jen, like, you don't feel like you want someone to feel bad. I didn't want you to have what was going on with you, but it made
mhm,
what was going on with me, mutual
yeah,
commiseration, so
yeah,
much easier to handle. It was like a relief. Okay, shared pain, right? Not here's my
yeah,
pain and shame. Oh my God, what's she gonna do? Judge me? It
mhm,
was here's my shame and pain. And you're like, here's mine. Oh, look at that. We both have it.
mhm.
It was
Thank you.
I can't it was a moment that I remember feeling bonded to you in a way that was beyond sharing memes and graphics and how's things going with your
Yes.
coaching. It was a whole different level. Yeah,
It was
in
a
that moment.
whole different level. It was a whole different level. You really explained it really beautifully. Yes, yes, and for us and our friendship, I can look over the past decade, and that was a pivotal up level for us. It was okay,
Mhm.
so now we have each other as this trusted space, and what are we gonna do with it? I know for you, during that season of your life, you were really leaning in more than you'd ever leaned in before to your faith.
Oh, yeah,
And
there
you
was
were
nowhere else to
reevaluating.
go.
There was nowhere else
Mhm.
to go. And I was there too. I was leaning in more than I ever had before to my faith and tearing the house down in every area of my life. And again, as I said before, I was reevaluating where I spent my time, who I spent my time with, what I wanted out of this life. And I knew that I was not somebody who wanted to play small. And I'm not talking about like, building multi-million dollar companies in that term, but it was play small in this journey as a human being. And I really, really wanted, and I am very committed to, as are you, to being who God created me to be. So it was that moment in our friendship that you became a very safe space for me to share very vulnerably and also to know that I can trust that your commitment to your faith and your commitment to really allowing yourself to be who God created you to be and to clear all the gunk and junk that was getting in the way and to be a better mom, to be a better partner, to be a better daughter, wife, coach, all of the things. And so that's me. And so that became our very safe space and we would volley and volley and volley. I mean, I remember so many times where we would hold space for one another and you would say, "Jen, I'm going to lose it. I don't know what to do right now."
Yes.
And our commitment to each other really became holding space. So it's like, hold space for one another. That's that part of like, can you hold space for my pain? Can you hold space for my swirl right now?
Mhm.
Acknowledge it. And then it's call me higher. What are you
Yeah.
gonna do about it?
Get
We
me
would
out of
give
it.
each other get me out of it. Sometimes it was giving one another permission to share. What do you see here? Can you reflect back? Can I hear your mom advice? What would you do in this situation? And that we would so it was a leaning in and a leaning in and a leaning in. So that was one very pivotal like up level in the friendship where we started to take the friendship from being just this like you said like the friendship where we talk about kids, we send each other funny memes, we touch in about or on each other like how's the business going, to really using the friendship. I would say that was a point where we shifted into it being more of a spiritual friendship. And that is here what we're talking about today is like these friendships that are even more, they are friendships that sharpen, where iron is sharpening our iron. And then the next that there's like three really
Mhm.
distinct, I think, points in our journey as friends thus far. I'm sure there's many more to come. And the next one was when Molly died. And so when Molly died,
Mhm.
I carried a lot of grief. She had actually asked me not to tell anyone. So I went almost 6 months without sharing with anybody. Not even my
Mm.
husband did she want to know, because was actually working with him in a professional relationship, and she did eventually tell him, but she had asked that nobody know, because professionally, Molly wanted to continue to work until she couldn't work anymore. And you were in the professional space. But it was when Molly really, it was the very end. It was the last 2 weeks, and I couldn't do it anymore. I
Mhm.
really needed somebody to just who I knew who could hold loving space without judgment. And I remember getting on a call and just letting it all out, and in the way that you held space for me, and not only right up until she died but afterwards, and held space for my grief and allowed me to fully grieve and express and share. And you never ever made me feel ashamed for the amount of grief that I had, and you really honored our unique relationship. Like, so you being my friend, you were also honoring a relationship that I had that was very deeply intimate and beautiful with another person too. So that helped me to lean in even more. And
Mhm.
again, there's vulnerability there, so part of being in a spiritual friendship is the safety that you cultivate in being able to be vulnerable. We're not meant to be this vulnerable with every single person in our life.
No. No. No, we
No.
have to protect ourselves in some ways. It's like the old Brene Brown state. I can't even remember the real story about it, but remember she talked about the marble jar and only certain friends
Mhm.
deserve to be in the marble jar, right?
Yeah.
I've used that over the years, and sometimes we put those friends in the jar because
Mhm.
they've given us no reason not to trust. We've developed a closeness, a camaraderie, a spiritual friendship, or whatever. But then sometimes something happens where that friend has to be taken out of the
Mhm.
jar, right?
Yeah.
And again, that's along the lines of like friends can be seasonal in many ways.
Yes.
But one thing that I think is really interesting about you and I is that the things that we are different about in our friendship, that we call each other higher with, like if I'm struggling to deal with something with myself, like maybe I'm in a body situation where I'm like, oh, I can't believe I'm looking like this, and you're like, are you going to stay there? I'm like, or you might say how we just kind of,
Mhm.
we can say these things to each other, we're
Mhm.
hurt, but then the other person says, but that's not where you want to be, right? So
Yeah.
I liken this to, I had friends back when I was married, and we
Uh-huh.
would go to the park with our kids, and all the women would sit around and talk about how awful their husbands were. And I remember it
Mhm.
was like, oh, he doesn't do this and he never does this and he is this. And I
Mhm.
remember sitting one time and looking like this, just looking back and forth at all of these women. And I'm thinking, why are we doing this? Like,
Yeah.
where is the how are we lifting each other up and out of the feelings or situations that we have that don't feel good? So whenever something with you and I happen, we never just sit around and beat our husbands up. Or wait, husbands, I'm
Yeah.
not married again. I've been
Mhm.
doing that lately. Isn't that funny? But my partner of 6.5 years, if something
Mhm.
bothers me, I will reach out to you and I'll say this. And we have a
Mhm.
lot of comedy in our exchange, which helps
Yeah.
me because for me, humor helps me to dispel pain sometimes, right?
Oh,
And
absolutely.
Yeah, it's beautiful because we feed into loving and spiritual mutual commiseration as opposed to the opposite, which is a very low vibrating consciousness level of beating up the people we love. So you're
Yes.
the first friend I've actually had that I'm able to come to with things that are hard, but then also volley back and forth on how to lift each other up out of those things in
Yes.
relationship with others. Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, it's just there's so many ways that it blesses us, but we just keep growing and ascending with everything that happens to us.
We do, we do. And we're very committed to using the relationship at this point to continue to
Yeah.
grow and ascend and to use it to serve God and greater good. And I mean, we have a lot of fun together. And I love that you pointed out like our laughter and the laughter brings levity. Spiritual friendships do not need to be serious all the time.
No.
We're not serious all the time at
No.
all at all. I think it's more about the commitment to growing and to calling each other higher. And again, that iron sharpens iron. Yeah. And then going back a little bit to like the origin of us, sometimes a friendship begins not just because of our shared interests, but because our souls are really, really recognizing one another. And I think when you're in a friendship like that, I mean, any relationship, you're in it's a soul connection. Whatever kind
Mhm.
of relationship it is. I mean, I look back on all the different women that I've been friends with at all different seasons of my life, and I know you do as well. And I can see the soul connection, even if it was a mom that was my bus stop mom friend, or the soccer mom friend, or the friend that was my workout buddy during years where we would put the kids in child watch so we would get a break. That's our soul recognizing this other person. For us, our soul was really recognizing in one another I see you and I see you desiring more, and you see me. Your soul sees me and sees me desiring and sharing more. So for us, these are different. We really decided there was I believe, an intentional decision that we both made to lean in more into the spiritual friendship when we agreed to really drop the mask and walk each other home. That's what we're doing all the time, is like walking each other home, which is walking each other closer to the divine within, closer to truth. So much of it is closer to truth. And how we do that, Carmen, you and I have, I think, really, I don't know, developed a process for this, a
Yeah.
simplicity in it, that because we're both coaches, we are teachers, we are educators, we hold space not only in our personal lives for one another, but we hold space professionally for other people. This is
Yeah.
very much why God has each of us here on this earth, and has given us the gift of words, of teaching, the gift of the art of coaching. And we're calling people closer to truth. And where's truth found? Truth is actually found within yourself. And how do you identify truth from all, like the big capital T truth, from all the little t truths that become the truths that you live into based on your conditioning of your life? Well, you've got to get really clear on what is from God, what is of the divine, and what is from the conditioning of your own life, and what's thickening the veil there. And you and I, we definitely have gotten pretty darn deep in that, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes here. One of the tools that we've both come, and I believe very more divine synchronicity, one of the tools that was brought into actually my life first and immediately after your life, that has helped us both individually. So let's shift here for our listeners a little bit and define what spiritual friendship is, and how spiritual friendship really differs from regular friendships. I mean, some of the key ingredients, like when you're baking a cake, would be, I mean, I want to hear what you have to say too. Deep honesty, a commitment to mutual growth, humility. Yeah, a lot of
Vulnerability,
humility.
obviously.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Being able to hear, like you have to actually be able. So if you're going to ask someone to be honest with you and to call you higher, and to not keep this at a surface level. You have to be humble enough to hear.
Yeah,
And I
exactly.
wasn't humble. I mean, I was very humbled, 2020 and my work and my deep work with Molly and tearing the house down in my life. That was when I really started to embody humility. I didn't have humility before that very well. I was not. And that was part of why I struggled with vulnerability. I mean, I could be vulnerable to a degree, but I wasn't vulnerable in sharing. Obviously, I didn't even share some of the deep, hard things that were going on behind the scenes because I thought I had to keep this perfect mask on. And it was when I became humble that I was able to really enter into like a deeper friendship with you too.
Mhm.
Um,
For sure.
yeah.
Vulnerability, I mean, like I've said, I've said over and over again in the last year, like you are like the queen of vulnerability now. Like, I mean,
Mhm,
you truly have. I mean, so for me, I've always shown up as a very big triple A personality.
mhm,
I'm for the underdog. I'm for, the suffering. I'm for anyone that doesn't have anyone speaking for them. It's almost like this thing inside of me that's never been able to see something happening and walk away. I charge into every fire that I see.
yeah,
If there's somebody or something, animals, elderly, young
mhm,
children, people who can't speak for themselves, I've always run towards those things with
mhm,
every weapon I've got to try to do something to help, right? So as a recovered people pleaser, because I don't do that
mhm,
anymore, but
yeah,
still recovering perfectionist, that's a dangerous combination, right? Because if I'm the one that's always chasing and helping everyone else because I'm here, I'm a warrior, I've got a big voice, I'll go on the news, I don't
yeah,
care, where does that leave room for me to go? But here are my
mhm,
broken pieces right here, right? So what you gave to me and helped me to be able to bring to the table of this spiritual friendship was
mhm,
you can be the warrior that has been given the gift of, my mom says the gift of
mhm,
Gavin volume, really, and still be someone that has these things going on, and you deserve to have someone rush in and help you. So I'm a work in progress about that in many ways where I might ask you, okay, Jen, what do I do with this? My
yeah.
favorite thing to ask Jen for the listeners is, could you please send me one more damn pair of patience pants? Because all of mine don't fit anymore. I've I have literally grown out of them, and I need like
Mhm,
10 more pairs in different colors. And she'll
mhm,
send me the GIF that has the pants dancing on it. And I'm like,
mhm,
thank you. Shit. So
mhm,
but just because I'm asking for those things
mhm,
doesn't necessarily mean that I'm able to receive the words of support or the here, Carmen, look at this. I'm like, okay, fine, I'll look at it, but only briefly. Like you've been like one of the only people I've ever been able to say, okay, fine. You're right. I have been ignoring that, like that. So,
absolutely.
again, it's vulnerability that you have shown me so many times over and over again that I can do the same thing with you. So, you asked in the beginning of this, what's the difference between a spiritual friendship and just a friendship?
Yep.
Well, we believe, truly, you and I believe God is in all of us. And
Yes.
what I think has happened that is so beautiful that's happened between us is that it's almost as if the light in you and the light in me shone so bright that it blinded the other person. So the only thing we could do is be like, okay, I see your light. Let's connect these lights and see what we can do with them. And
Ooh,
yeah,
I love that.
sometimes you cannot see the light in others no matter how hard you shine your light at
Mhm,
them because they haven't seen it in themselves. So we're just
mhm,
so beautifully able through all of the trials and tribulations we started talking about
mhm.
in the very beginning of this podcast is we have to go through all those really hard things, I
Yeah.
believe, and then start seeking in the darkest places that we are for the brightest light. And for me, you were the brightest light, and I was a bright light for you,
Yes.
right? It was like,
Oh, God,
we're
yeah.
in the dark.
Mhm,
Where's the light? Who can I find? And even friends at 25 years didn't feel safe in many ways for the amount of
mhm.
darkness that I was carrying. And you probably feel the same. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. And
Mhm.
I needed to work through a lot of my own stuff, my own, limiting beliefs and these subconscious limiting beliefs that I was carrying around, that I wasn't special, that I wasn't right. And it was one of the reasons why, prior, like 5, 6 years ago, when you were standing on the rooftops with all your confident, bold self, like shouting, why you would trigger me, and it was a triggering to me because what you were able to do, I wasn't able to do. And then I'm like, she's right, I'm wrong. And so even in our friendship, as I've been working through and healing a lot of that stuff and pulling it up out of the subconscious mind and like, okay, that that's not real truth. And we're going to put that in the garbage can 1,000 times over and over again. We've brought into this relationship the safety of being able to talk about it, because I will say, like, you're triggering me. And you're
Mhm.
like, all right, let's talk about it.
Call
Let's
me.
like bring it. Call me. Like, let's hash it out. I mean, we sat
Yeah.
together even in person last week and worked some of that stuff out. Like, where is that coming from, Jen? And I think in these relationships, as you grow and you nurture and you foster them, you can use them as the safest space to be able to work out some of this stuff. Because we all have
Mhm.
stuff. And
Yep.
then it goes and then you can go into the other relationships in your life and you're stronger because you've had this sister, like this safe space with a sister where
Mhm.
you can work out some of your own crap. And then, okay, great, now I'm brave enough to go into this other relationship and now work there. It's really, really beautiful. So the commitment to mutual growth is really important too.
Mhm.
A commitment to reflecting. I love how you said light. It's like the light in you is so bright and the light in me is really bright. And really, really understanding that there's no limitation to the light. The light is God, God is limitless. So
Mhm.
using that to reflect God back on one another. That is our commitment. That is our commitment here. And that's really what we do as human beings in relationship. Ultimately, our goal is to reflect God back on one another. And when we do that, we're magnifying the light, and the light in you is hitting the light in me, and it's helping clear out some of the darkness that's hanging out in the crevices of my own being. And
Yeah.
in friendships, in these really sacred spiritual friendships, if you choose to cultivate them and work at them, and they do take work, you're creating a container for both sacred joy, like a lot of joy, and a lot of sacred fire. I mean, there's fire that goes on, and fire is beautiful. Fire is amazing, but fire also needs to be contained. And
Mhm.
so when you're in a relationship where you have this mutual agreement, you can help one another contain that fire so that it burns really proactively and effectively, and it doesn't become this like wildfire. So yeah, yeah, it's
Let me take
been
a moment. I wanna reflect something back too. So what you were
yeah.
talking about, what we learn with each other, we then take out into other relationships like you were talking
Mhm.
about. Like,
Yeah.
I'm able to be more vulnerable with this friend because I learned it here. But here's something that I think is also crazily unique because God makes no mistakes, is the partner that I'm now with and the man that you are married to have qualities and things about them that you have and that I have. So
Yes.
so for example, my partner, boyfriend, which always sounds so weird at 54 years old to say boyfriend,
Mhm.
my guy friend has some qualities that you were struggling with. And I was
Yes.
struggling with those qualities with him. And
Mhm.
so you were actually able to go, this is why he feels this way. This is what's going on with
Mhm.
him. Can you
Mhm.
give him a little bit of grace here and patience over here? And that's where
Mhm.
the patience pants thing came in, where I'm like,
Yes.
okay, fine, right? Okay.
Yes.
But it's helped me to actually have a more tender heart and a better understanding of the man that I am now with, right? And I think kind of the same
Mhm.
thing with your husband and me
Yeah.
and my personality. And that's why we jive so well together, right? Like your
Oh,
husband
yes.
talk and yeah, we get each other. And you and my partner, you guys can talk and you
We
get each other.
do. Yeah, we
Yeah.
do. We do.
Very
We do. Andy and I have a sensitivity about us that's very similar. And we
yes.
also struggled with some similar constructs. So we could like our limiting
And
beliefs
me.
coming from. And then yes. And we've been able to really help one another in that way. Andy sent me a beautiful text after you returned from visiting me and just thanking me for our friendship and for the
Mhm.
ways that the two of us help our men to be stronger, healthier men for us because we're
Yes.
doing this work here and it's women's work. A lot of women talk a lot. We've got a lot of emotion, we have a lot of layers, and the relationship that we have with women is very distinct. It's different than the relationship that we have with men. So I know that Dante is incredibly grateful for all of my friendships and very, very grateful for you and for what you have done for me in all areas has positively impacted my relationship with him and my marriage. So I'm really glad that you brought that up.
Mhm.
Yeah. I want to just touch on before we move on from what really makes a spiritual friendship, the difference between like emotional dumping and, the bitching that women you were talking about. Like, let's just like go to the park. Like I did this so often when I was a young wife and go hang out with other moms and just like bitch about the husband and complain. So that emotional dumping versus intentional witnessing. Like, so
Yeah.
intentionally witnessing someone versus just bitching.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Complaining and bitching and staying in that low
Mhm.
vibrational frequency or whatever is really a lowered level of consciousness. So once you
Yeah.
start this spiritual ascension to the Christ consciousness
Mhm.
that you and I
Yeah.
are both so excited about every
Mhm.
day, like I
Every
don't think
day.
I know another woman who wakes up and is like, I just want to sit in my chair and read about God and talk to God and
Mhm.
talk to my friends and share like everything about God, right? Like that's
Yeah.
just what we're very passionate about that. But, when once you start this process, it's almost like once you know you can't go back. To
Yes.
drop me or you back into those friendships from before would be
Yes.
very difficult. They'd be very
Very.
difficult. I would run away screaming from my old
Mhm.
self and that person that would
Mhm.
sit there. I would participate, not
Yeah.
as much, but I would definitely get involved because again, it's that mutual commiseration. But then you'd walk away being like,
Mhm.
ugh, I feel so
I know.
drained. No wonder I'm so tired. Maybe it wasn't about having a 5-year-old that was on the go all the time.
Mhm.
Maybe it was about the
Mhm.
energy that was surrounding this
Yeah.
joyous experience of having children and then being
Yeah.
dragged down into the negativity of
Yeah.
marriage and relationships. We never talked about
Mhm.
God. Like
Mhm.
never. Where was the space for
Yeah.
that? You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes,
Mhm.
yes, yes. I love how you're bringing in just tapping into the energy. The energy of our
Mhm.
relationships makes a huge difference because that affects us. That affects our own energy and our own frequency. And we want to elevate our frequency. The highest frequent the highest vibrating emotion is love. God is
Yeah.
love. So our goal for all of us is to vibrate in the vibration, the energetic frequency of love. And when we're there, there's no dis-ease, there's no
No.
discontent. We have
Mm-mm.
everything, literally everything. So why wouldn't we want to surround ourselves with people who feel the same insofar as I desire to vibrate there? We also understand that we're human beings, and that's where that intentional witnessing comes in. And I'm having a really hard day and I'm really struggling right now. But why do we want to hang out with people who keep us at a low vibration instead of somebody who's like, I see you, I have deep compassion for you. Let's give you some grace and let's go higher.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Um,
And I think,
so
I
with
think one of the things that's great about us is that when there's something that's going on with me, I can message you and say, "Have you got a minute? I need to let it out."
yeah.
And that's okay. And that's all I need to do. I don't need to be fixed. I don't want
Mhm.
and sometimes I'll say to you, "Please don't I don't want any advice." Or you'll say to me, "I don't
Yeah.
need this to be fixed. I just need to pour it out and be done with it." And sometimes
Mhm.
that is all we need. It's like throwing out the garbage
Mhm.
and then, maybe Jen will come back and pick up my garbage can and roll it away from
Mhm.
me so I don't have to focus on it again, and then it's gone.
Yes. It
Sometimes that's
is.
all we need is that a
It
witness.
is, absolutely. There's been times where and I mean, I'm committed to, like, if you really are struggling with something and you might voice message me, and I need to sit with it for a little bit before I respond back, and I'll pray, and I'll ask God to show me what to do with it. And sometimes he'll give me words like immediately, and I know. So these are coming from God and I'm going to share it with you. And then there's been many times where I just hear, wait, just wait, just wait. And then I'll go about my day, and the end of the day will come and you'll message me again. It's all worked out. So
Yeah, figure
that
it out.
wait was just give Carmen time. She just needed to be witnessed. She needed to
Yeah,
get that up and out because women, more than men, but women also process verbally. So having that discernment as a friend to know when to wait and when to lean in, because it is never our job to fix anybody. Truly,
no,
nobody, not even in a friendship when somebody is asking us for help. They might ask us for advice or what would you do? Keeping yourself in check and keeping your ego in check too in the relationship is really, really important.
for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think we do a very good job of that because we have so
Mhm.
much knowledge between the two of us. We've got
Yeah.
over 30 years of experience in health and wellness and helping people. I mean, thousands of people that we have helped with
Yes.
chronic health
Yes.
conditions and problems and all of that. But the thing is
Mhm.
this is, you know, we lead each other back to the answer within us. We remind
Yes.
each other, you know, what do you feel? What are
Yes.
you thinking? You know,
Yes.
what feels good to you right now? Those kinds of questions.
Mhm.
So I love that you said like we're not here to fix anything for someone else. We're
Mhm.
here to say, how can I support you? What do you need right now?
Yeah.
And sometimes that's just a simple question is what can I do for you right
Mhm.
now? I just need
Right.
you to
Right.
okay, just
Yes.
listen.
Yes.
Yeah.
We do that a lot for
Mhm.
each other. Just like, what do you need in this moment? What do you
Mhm.
need? And
Yeah.
I just need you to listen to me. I just need, or I do need some advice, or I need you to, I'll say sometimes to you, can you spot check me? And I'll then verbally share like my own process and my own thoughts. But I know that I might have some blind spots and I'm coming forward with humility and open to guidance on that. So I want to
Mhm.
share with some people before, we share a little bit more about the role of trust and something that's really helped also up level our own relationship, but some, practical tips for people who are listening for your own relationships. If you've got some in your life that you want to grow and cultivate more, or maybe you don't have them yet, but you're looking for them. So just an encouragement to really pray for the aligned relationships. I shared that, it was like 5, 6 years ago that I was praying over all of my relationships and looking through them with discernment and really asking for God's guidance in them. And there have been relationships that have completely expired that I've 100% stepped away from. And then there are some, Carmen being one, where I've leaned in more. So just inviting God into that to bring the right people into my life or to say, hey, you've got one right in front of you, but you're not maximizing it and you can lean in more, starting with honesty. Really, as you've said, Carmen, like vulnerability is the portal. So, but you got to pray for discernment there too. Like, can I
Yeah.
trust this person in being honest with them? And really committing to truth over comfort. That's been hmm, for us, that's been huge. And that has really accelerated the growth of a relationship and the fruit. We have more and more fruit that comes out of this relationship because we're very committed to truth over the comfort of the relationship. So there's been times where it's been uncomfortable, but we're both very willing to be called higher.
Yeah. Yeah. I like
Yeah.
to always tell people like, in order to grow in any capacity in your life, relationally, spiritually, whatever it is, you've got to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And it might be a short period of time, but you also have to get comfortable with uncertainty and don't get married to
Oh,
the
yeah.
outcome. It's all it is
1,000%.
total trust, right? Is, you know, okay, being uncomfortable, being uncertain, and you know, and as we go into the probably the next topic, I
Mhm.
think you're going to talk about letting go of uncertainty, letting go of control, and
Mhm.
friendships require that as well, right? You know,
Oh, yeah.
I'm not going to control this friendship. I don't know what's going to come with it. And when you actually let go and just let God shine through both of you, then that's always right. There's
Yes.
never wrong with that, right? There's nothing
Yes.
wrong with anything that comes through a friendship that God is working through, hands and feet,
Oh,
right?
absolutely, absolutely, and
Mhm.
that's where we get to use even the conflict that can come up in a relationship and use
Yeah,
it as refinement and lean into the healthy abrasion and allow that to facilitate growth. And
yeah,
also stepping away from like not no, we don't need perfection here. Perfection isn't the goal. It's allowing each other to be human. Like you're allowing me to be human. I'm allowing you to be human, and also using the relationship as like holy ground at the exact same time. It's like I acknowledge that you're human. I'm a human. We're not perfect. That's not the goal. But this is also holy ground that we're walking on here in the relationship, which
Mhm.
is why it's so important to stay really aligned in your mission, aligned in the purpose of this overall relationship. And sometimes you need to revisit that and revisit that with people. And friendships come into our life. Some stay forever and some are for a season, and that's okay too. So just doing periodic check-ins with whether it's yourself or with one another to say like, where are we at? Are we still going in the same direction here?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. For sure.
And then I
Mhm.
think, the last one that I wanted to share was just creating like a safe integration space. So as we're growing, as things are coming up, as we're unearthing things in ourselves, just creating a space for us to integrate, especially in a very like spiritually expansive seasons. And that for us, that's what I wanted to share before we wrap up this podcast episode. The third level up for us in our friendship really came in a season of deep, deep spiritual growth for both of us and spiritual expansiveness. And after Molly died, I was searching for something. I was very, very stuck in grief. And I also didn't understand some of why it hit me so hard because there were some belief systems that were stuck in my subconscious that I wasn't aware of. And I was looking and looking and looking. And that's when I came across using MDMA as a tool in my own growth to really lift the veil and get into my constructs. And that was something that I I know I shared. I didn't share that I was specifically looking at MDMA. I know I shared that I was looking for something. You had done ketamine a couple of
Mhm.
years prior, and I wasn't feeling called to that. I had been looking at other options. And when I decided to do an MDMA journey, I actually didn't tell anyone and I didn't tell you. And I did that on purpose because I was struggling. I had always struggled with people pleasing and not thinking I was right. And I got such a strong intuitive hit that this was for me. God was like, do it. You don't need validation from anyone. And I was like, I want to tell Carmen. I want to tell Carmen. I'm like, no. I was so committed to doing something different for the first time in my life where I told nobody. So I go and I do it. And of course, you're the first person that I like had to run and tell. And after. Um, so I did. And I knew that there were things in your life that you were like, I can't figure this out. I'm doing all the things. I can't figure it out. And perhaps in another podcast episode, we can go deeper into our journeys with MDMA. I actually would love that, but we don't have the time for that here today. But what that did for us, you went out very quickly and you did your own MDMA journey. And what MDMA did for the both of us was really show us where we still needed to heal
Mhm.
for both of us. It was like it lifted the veil and it showed you some subconscious wounds, some patterning that was really stuck in the subconscious. We brought it up from the subconscious into the conscious mind, but it doesn't just automatically go away. You're rewiring and refiring the nervous system, but you're deprogramming and then you're reprogramming based on truth. And what we did during that season, as soon as we both did MDMA, it was like, I mean, we just got like shot up in a rocket to a whole nother
Mhm.
level in our own lives personally, but we used our friendship for integration. We
Yes.
used it, we integrated and integrated and integrated with one another. I don't think we've stopped. Yeah. Yeah.
Your call, or I remember when you called
Hmm.
and you were telling me about it. I think we were on the phone for 2.5 hours, something
Yeah.
like that.
Hmm.
And I remember feeling a shift in my physical body.
Hmm.
I can't explain it. We both experienced it. That felt as if I had been lifted. That's what Andy and I
Yeah.
like to call when we've had a little
Yeah.
THC or something like that,
Yeah.
or when we've done journey. It's like I feel lifted. I felt it coming directly from you. I don't
Yeah.
think I even. I think I was literally on the phone with you, going, "I
Yeah.
need to find a guy."
You were.
Like,
Yeah. I know.
Yeah.
You're like, "Ah, this is it." And it was such a I mean, it was once again just one of those moments where you can see the divine synchronicity. And as I had laid in bed the night of my first journey, reflecting, how in the world did I get here? How in the world was I brought to MDMA? Getting chills down my spine as I realized, oh, the street nickname for MDMA is Molly. And if Molly hadn't died and all the things, I'm like, whoa, I saw it. I actually could see. I got into health coaching. One of the reasons why I got into health coaching was my nephew dying. I could see that. And then I could see, oh, you were in Carmen's group. And it was in Carmen's group that you not only met Carmen, but you met some other people. And one of the women introduced me to Molly years later. And the woman who was my guide was
Yeah.
a somebody that was introduced to me from another one of your students in that group, that and her daughter became a client of mine. I mean, it was just so wild, and it was so I just saw it as such divine provision, and I was incredibly grateful. But for us to also have been prepared, I think when we came together and really opened up and were vulnerable during that season of parenthood for each of us, that was so hard. Holding space for one another's grief and for one another's growth for the years prior leading up to that really cultivated the trust that was required for one another to hold space for each other's raw truth and also each other's divine brilliance. A lot of people can be very intimidated by others when they rise, and not everyone likes when we rise. I mean, people listening here might have had experiences where, like, you're elevating, you're rising, you're healing, and someone in your life is pulling on your ankle and trying to pull you into their swirls and pull you into their gossip and pull you into their negative vibration, right? And
Yeah.
to trust another person with our own divine brilliance and our own healing, it's next level. It's
Mhm.
definitely next level. And we've helped one another back and forth and back and forth in this season of deep integration that's not ending. I don't think it ever will, to really identify each other's brilliance, our
Mhm.
missions, the just like to really honor the sacredness in each other.
Yeah, and again, going back to, so one thing I want to mention, because we're talking to people about how to have a spiritual friendship, and
Mhm.
if you don't have one, how to find one, that kind of thing. One of the things I want people to make sure that they understand is you don't have to have the exact same
Mhm.
relationship with God
Yeah.
as the person that's your friend or the
Wow.
person that you're seeking. I mean, when
Yeah.
one of the things that when Jen says, I was so out there and you're so confident, you're soft
Mhm.
spoken, you're yourself, I've heard that all of my life. They're like, where's your fear? I'm like,
Mhm.
I don't know. Surely it's somewhere, right? But here's the thing. I looked at you like she is way too God for me. Like she knows God more than I will ever know God. I
Yeah.
don't know God well enough to be her friend. Like she is like
Mhm.
everything was a prayer and I'm over here like ghetto God person.
Ghetto God, that's great. I love it.
What do you mean? Like here I am, here
Yes.
you are like, "Ah," like all
Yeah.
pulled together and prayers everywhere. And I'm over here going,
Uh-huh.
God's in you, damn it.
Yes. Yes.
So very
Throw in a little
different.
a couple like F-bombs with it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know. And it was awesome for us because you also helped me to break free of a lot of religious, constraints that I was hanging out in, and they had a lot to do with my own, again, subconscious programming that I was walking around with. It wasn't necessarily like the religion that I was attached to itself. It was how I was perceiving it up against my
Uh-huh.
own, constructs.
Yep.
Like you made me nervous. But I'm like, I was so solid on what I felt in you and what I saw in you. And you are totally correct. Like, we don't need to practice in the same way. We don't need to worship in the same way. Our relationship with God is so personal, but
Yes.
it's
Yes.
God in you and God in me. And when we really get that, and we're like, oh wait, that's the unity. That's the oneness. It's the oneness of, wait, God's in you and God's in me and God's in them and God's in him. And even when they're not aware, and it can
Yep.
look differently and it can sound different. Oh, so
Yeah.
freeing. Like, so,
Yeah.
so freeing. I mean, so freeing. So
So look
yeah.
for the yeah, so looking for the God in someone else doesn't have to look
Mhm.
like the God that you have for yourself in the
Oh.
church that you go to. It can be, "Oh, you're on a mission to get closer to
Yeah.
God? Me too." Okay, it doesn't have to look the same, but at least we are that's you seeing the light in them and them seeing the
Mhm.
light in you, come together and give it the opportunity. Don't try to fix somebody's idea of God. Don't try to bend
Oh,
them
I
to
love that
your
so much.
idea. Yeah,
Yes.
just allow them to have their experience.
Yeah,
You have your, and know that that's the connector. And then you
that
learn
is.
from them, they learn from you, and that's how you grow in Christ consciousness. Truly,
Yes,
that's truly how it
yes.
works.
I love that so much. Yes, it's the for me, I needed the safety in a relationship to be able to do that because again, I had these like, I'm wrong, I'm wrong, I'm wrong. And that's why like religion like tripped me up. And it also became like like religion for me was like these guardrails that actually kept God too confined. And you
Yeah.
gave me permission to remove them and to put in place God rails. And you're like, Jen, hi, God's really in me. Can you trust it? As I'm fully me and I look very different than you and I practice different than you. And it's okay. And so, yeah, I love that you've encouraged our listeners to step out of it having to look the same way. Yeah.
For sure.
Um,
Yeah.
okay. So as we, wrap this all up, really, we
Oh, can
really
I say
want
one more thing?
to,
I wanna
yeah,
say one more thing.
please.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where I was going with that also a bit, well, right before that was the way that you and I have come into this experience of using
Mhm.
MDMA and integrating with each
Mm.
other and lifting each other up. It is
Mhm.
almost as if, like I said earlier, our two bright lights have crashed together and created
Yes.
this ability, or this road, pathway, trailhead for other people to also use MDMA as an experience, right? To get closer to God. You
Yes.
and I both are committed to that.
Oh,
So,
we're so
yeah.
committed to
So,
that. We
yeah.
are.
And we will talk about it, I'm sure, in another podcast. But
We are. We're
that's
gonna this I already know we're gonna have to do this like next week. We're gonna have to record another one just on MDMA because after this conversation, I'm sure we've got a lot of people intrigued. We're like, wait a second. They talked about spiritual friendships, God, and drugs. Yes, that is Carmen and I. Hi. And we also have formed a community where we have it on Substack. We'll drop the links in the show notes here. We have a community on Substack called Sacred Healing with MDMA. And we came together on that community, and we have another one on Facebook, which is just more conversational, just called the Healing Place. But what we're really committed to is the mission of helping other people to find truth within themselves, to develop their own relationship with God, to break free of the programming and the density of this world that we're in, to find freedom, to find joy. And it really, really has been our friendship and the uniqueness in each other and the ways that we've been growing and cultivating this friendship that have allowed us to come together and form something that is so out of the box. It's like it couldn't be any more out of the box, right? Like let's come talk God. And yes, we're talking about an illegal drug. And we're totally okay with it. And we for the people who feel called to it, we guide them on doing much of what you and I have been doing personally behind the scenes. And we help others to do that, to rise, to break free, find healing in these really, really deep, expansive ways. And it's pretty darn cool. I couldn't be
Yeah.
doing this with anybody else. And you can zoom out after this whole conversation. I'm sure you and I will listen to the podcast and be like, whoa, look at the last decade. Look at how God so strategically placed the pieces on the chessboard and moved them around to bring us here and to bring us more and more aligned with our mission and our calling. So I will put all of those links for people who are listening in the show notes if you're interested in joining any of our communities or learning more. And stay tuned because we will do another episode going into all of that in a deeper way. But I'm just going to share here again with you, Carmen, my gratitude for being who you are, for challenging me, for calling me higher, for witnessing me, for not letting me sit in a place of stuckness. I appreciate you. I love you. And I know there's so much more to come for us in our relationship as we continue to journey through life. So thank you for being my very first guest on the podcast, too.
Yes, thank
Yeah.
you for having me here and just sharing your family and everything. Thank you for sharing everything about your life with me. Truly,
Sure.
like when you think about spiritual friendships, it isn't about just getting a Bible out and sitting down across from each other
Mhm.
and learning about God, talking about God. It's about like
Right.
showing up for each other in every way with God
Yeah.
at the helm of every single
Yeah.
thing we do. And
Every
even the things that are hard and even the things that are funny, I don't think I've ever had a friend that leads with God with everything in their life like you do. And
Mhm.
so, I mean, you're my match. And I just
Yep.
love you dearly. So, so, so grateful we are where we are today, helping other people out in the world with this and bringing
Yeah.
something, like you said, completely outside the box. Because we don't just do what
Mhm.
we're doing with MDMA just to, you know, oh, let's touch the deeper consciousness. No, we lead with God,
Yeah.
and God
We lead
is
with
the
God.
goal. Yes,
Yes.
1,000%
Oh,
with
yes.
everything.
God is the goal. God is the goal, and we are out of the box because there are no boxes. There truly are no boxes. Like, you've
Yeah.
helped me really embrace that there's no boxes, and God cannot be confined to a box, and
That's
friendships don't have to be confined to any box. Truly, truly.
yeah,
So, as we wrap up, for all of you listening, I want to invite you to just reflect on who sharpens you, like who in your life is sharpening you. And is there a relationship that you can lean into more so that the two of you are able to sharpen one another more? Who do you feel safe to be fully honest with? Maybe that's something that you spend some time reflecting on and journaling on. And maybe there is somebody that you feel safe, and like I have done with Carmen and Carmen has done with me, maybe you start leaning into that a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more. Where can you bring more vulnerability or truth into an already existing friendship?
yeah, and how can
So
you be
if
safe for someone else?
oh, oh, I love
Yeah,
that. Yes. How can you also be a safe place for somebody else? So yes,
yeah,
be what you seek to attract to yourself too. So you be
for
that
sure.
energetic vibration that's going to attract in that friendship, that match like Carmen and I have in each other. We're each other's match, but you've got to become it yourself. True.
Sure,
So vulnerability, honesty, humility, all of that starts with you. So work on you and trust, and you can call those people in, whether they're already existing friendships or whether they haven't come across your path yet. So if this episode has blessed you, I highly encourage you to share it with someone who could be blessed by it themselves. Maybe you've got a friendship in your life that you want to share and cultivate even more, or you've got a spiritual bestie and you just want to share it and say thank you so much, and rate and review. That helps other people to be able to get this podcast into their ears. Again, in the show notes, we'll drop some of the links that Carmen and I have mentioned here today. And for now, we appreciate you. Take care, friends. Thank you for joining me on the Daily Surrender. If today's episode spoke to you, I'd love to hear your reflections. Send me a message, share this with a friend, or leave a review. Or remember, true healing and freedom come when we let go, surrender, and trust that God's way is so much better than our way. Until next time, my friends, keep surrendering, keep rising, and keep walking in peace.